By 1943, Nazi Germany was a state in retreat. Factories were burning. Cities were crumbling. Faced with this accelerating collapse, Nazi leadership turned toward technology. Toward miracles, they called them Wunderwaffen. Wonder weapons. Not merely new machines, but weapons of salvation meant to rewrite reality itself. In this video, we are counting down the 10 Nazi superweapons that were decades ahead of their time, and how they built the modern world we live in today. At number 1, we begin with a quiet revolution on the Eastern Front. German officers realized that modern firefights were happening at intermediate ranges between 100 and 400 meters. But their existing weapons failed them. Bolt-action rifles were too slow. Submachine guns were too weak at distance. The solution was the Sturmgewehr 44, the world's first true assault rifle. At the heart of this weapon was the 7.92 x 33 Kurz cartridge. It was shorter and lighter than standard rifle ammo. This reduced recoil allowed a soldier to fire automatically from the shoulder without losing control. For the first time, automatic fire and accuracy were no longer enemies. Hitler actually hated the idea, forcing engineers to rename the project MP44 to hide it from him. But when surrounded troops on the front lines demanded more of these miracle rifles, he relented and gave it the name that stuck: Storm Rifle. It arrived too late to save Germany, but its design DNA is visible in every AK-47 and M16 used today. Number 2. We have a weapon that tried to remove the soldier from the battlefield entirely: the Goliath. This was a small, tracked vehicle packed with explosives. Essentially, it was a suicide robot long before the word robot was common in warfare. Operators guided it by a long cable, steering it into bunkers, bridges, or tank formations before detonating it remotely. In urban combat like the Warsaw Uprising, it was terrifying. Barricades would simply vanish. However, the Goliath was a glimpse of the future that failed in the present. It was slow and fragile. If the control cable snapped or the terrain was too rough, the weapon became useless. Number 3 sits a giant from another age, Gustav. While other wonder weapons focused on speed or technology, this one focused on sheer brute size. It was a railway gun so massive it weighed thousands of tons and fired shells weighing 7 tons each. At the siege of Sevastopol, it shattered the earth itself. Its shells could pierce through 100 feet of rock and concrete. But Gustav was a dinosaur. It required thousands of men to set up, specialized tracks to move, and days of preparation to fire just a few shots. In an era of air power, it was a target that couldn't hide. Number 4 takes us beneath the waves. The Type 21 U-boat. Before this vessel, submarines were essentially surface ships that could dip underwater for short periods. The Type 21 was different. It was designed to stay submerged. It was fast underwater, silent, and deadly. It featured advanced sonar that allowed it to stalk enemies without ever raising a periscope. It also had a hydraulic torpedo loading system that allowed it to fire salvos faster than any Allied equivalent. Only one ever went on patrol before the war ended, but its influence was absolute. Every modern submarine, from Soviet diesels to American nuclear subs, followed the blueprint. Number 5. We see the birth of the smart bomb, the Fritz X. In 1943, above the Mediterranean, German bombers released weapons that didn't just fall, they thought. The Fritz X was a radio-guided glide bomb, steered by an operator in the mother plane. Using a joystick, he could punch through the heavy armor of battleships with terrifying precision. It famously sank the Italian battleship Roma and severely damaged British capital ships. The Allies were forced to respond not with more armor, but with electronic warfare, jamming the radio signals to break the guidance. This cat-and-mouse game between missiles and countermeasures began here. Number 6 brings us to the terror of London, the V1 flying bomb. This was the world's first cruise missile. It was powered by a pulse-edged engine that fired 50 times a second, creating a distinct buzzing chug-chug-chug sound. It was a psychological weapon. Londoners learned that as long as they could hear the engine, they were safe. The terror came when the engine stopped, because that meant the V1 was diving. It was a statistical weapon, not a precision one. Guidance was simple: a compass for direction and a small propeller on the nose to count distance. Though thousands were launched, they were slow enough that British pilots could intercept them. sometimes even tipping them over with their wingtips. The V1 proved that unmanned warfare was possible. Number 7 is the weapon that arrived before its sound. The V2 rocket dart. If the V1 was a plane, the V2 was a spaceship. It was the first man-made object to touch the edge of space. It launched vertically, powered by liquid oxygen and ethanol, reaching supersonic speeds. Because it fell from the stratosphere faster than the speed of sound, there was no warning. The explosion happened and then the sonic boom followed. But the V2 is also a symbol of horror. It was built by slave labor in the underground tunnels of Mittelbau-Dora. Prisoners lived in cold, damp rock tunnels, worked to death to fuel this technological dream. The V2 killed more people during its production than it did as a weapon. Technically, it was the ancestor of the moon landing. Number 8 is the dawn of the jet age. Allied pilots reported seeing a plane that didn't have propellers. A plane that could surge past them at speeds over 500 miles per hour. The Me-262 was the world's first operational turbojet fighter. It was faster than the best American P-51 Mustangs by a significant margin, giving its pilots the power to choose when to fight and when to flee, but it was flawed. Its Junkers Jumo 004 engines were built with inferior metals because Germany had run out of heat-resistant alloys. They were prone to catching fire if the pilot adjusted the throttle too quickly. Worse, Hitler interfered again, demanding this sleek fighter be used as a blitz bomber to strike ground targets. At number 9, we have a design that looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie, the Horton Ho 229. This was a flying wing, no tail, no fuselage, just a smooth, aerodynamic shape. The goal was speed and range. But the design had an unintended side effect, stealth. Because it lacked sharp angles and vertical surfaces, the Ho 229 had a reduced radar signature. It was built from wood and steel tubing due to material shortages, which further absorbed radar waves. It never saw combat, remaining a prototype. But if you look at a modern B-2 Spirit bomber today, you are looking at the ghost of the Ho 229. Finally, at number 10. The most dangerous aircraft ever flown. It was a rocket plane. It was designed to intercept bombers by shooting straight up into the sky at 600 miles per hour. But the price of this performance was insanity. It used hypergolic fuels that ignited instantly on contact with each other. If the fuel lines leaked, the pilot could literally be dissolved in his seat. It had only minutes of fuel. Once the rocket ran dry, the Comet became a heavy, unpowered glider that had to land while enemy fighters hunted it down. It was spectacular, terrifying, and ultimately an act of desperation. These 10 weapons were triumphs of engineering, but they were symptoms of a collapsing system. The Nazis believed that miracles could replace logistics, that genius could substitute for fuel and manpower. They were wrong. Prototypes don't win wars. Supply lines do, but the story didn't end in 1945 through operations like Paperclip. The victors harvested these mines. Werner von Braun went from building V2 South for Hitler to building the Saturn V for America. The Type 21 defined Soviet submarines. The jet data shaped the Cold War skies. The paradox of the Wunderwaffe is this: the Nazis built the future, but they lacked the morality or stability to inhabit it. Instead, they left their blueprints behind for a new world forged in the fires of their destruction.